I'll ask the crowd if they need me to use it.
For Yendra's sake, why don't we all gather pretty close?
Yes, please, bring it in. Okay. Hello, folks. Welcome and thank you for coming for the Peterborough Assembly on our State of Democracy. Woo. Okay, so I tend to have a quieter voice. I do. And so just let me know if there's anything I can do logistically or just anything I can do or any of the other speakers can do to modify our voices. There is a bullhorn floating around, but kind of prefer to speak without it, but let me know. All right, so before we get started, I'd like to first acknowledge the First Nations land we are standing on. Thank you to the Anishinaabe and thank you to the Haudenosaunee, more specifically the Mississauga Cree and the New Credit First Nation. And going on with that, we are aiming to create a safer, more accessible and accountable space. For this to happen, we have to take notice of the power as it presents itself and does not. Let us take a minute first to notice all those who have not attended for their many reasons gathered here today with us. I think it's important when we are discussing democracy that we should be thinking about those who tend to have barriers to access this space due to many reasons: ability, age, status, that can isolate people from gathering in social movements and even accessing their vote. With that in mind, let us also acknowledge the unnatural systems of oppression such as colonialism, racism, sexism, heteronormativity, patriarchy, all of these systemic that marginalize folks and discriminate them and work to silence their voices. With this acknowledgement in mind, let us commit to noticing and intercepting all oppressive or hateful language. Just be intentional when you speak and engage with the space and know that your voice comes with power. And yeah, just remember to engage with love and kindness.
Thank you.
So in order for all people here to feel comfortable, I'd like to ask for any persons from the media or from law enforcement for right now to make it clear that they're present.
What? No media?
Oh, they'll show up.
They'll show up.
Where's that bowl?
Okay. And I'd like to introduce one of the other speakers and facilitators, just a part of our collective public presence, Joe Grafe.
Thank you. Let's make this more of a circle because the whole idea today is to assemble, right? We're not really coming to listen to anybody on a soapbox because we get that every day. As an assembly, I'd like to ask your permission then to have prepare some opening words and to kind of set the context and the tone for, I think, why we gathered here today. And one of the ways that we do this kind of interaction is through hand signals. So if you approve of something, I encourage you to use this symbol for your approval. If you're unsure about something that I say, I encourage you to put your hands in front of you. And if you disagree with something that I say, I encourage you to put your hands down. All right? And in this way, this makes it more of an interaction as opposed to just listening. So then, may I speak on the context of why we're here? Thank you. I'm honored to welcome you to the first Peterborough Assembly, today on the state of our democracy. I regret that we couldn't just gather here to praise our democracy, or to enjoy the parade, or to check out CD Sunday across the street. But while I regret this, I am very excited to inform you that we are gathering in solidarity with over 30 cities across Canada and thousands of Canadians here in the backyard of the MP who's been up front and center of this whole issue. Now, here's a little bit of context for people who aren't quite up to date. As you may or may not know, we exist in a country with a government that has 100% of the power, but only 4 out of 10 votes. Now, I think Sean Devlin says it the best. How is 4 out of 10 good enough for our government but it's not enough dentists to recommend a brand of toothpaste. Now, with this in mind, there's another term they use, which is called a razor-thin majority. And you may not know this, but our government has 100% of the power because of 11 seats. And across those 11 seats, all of which have complained about fraudulent activities, they won by a margin of victory of less than about 6,000 votes. That is 0.01% of the total Canadian vote. That's what they call a razor-thin majority. Or it's what Stephen Harper calls Canada's benign dictatorship. But we all knew this. But what we just learned is that not only might be a fake majority, not only is this a benign dictatorship, but it might be a stolen benign dictatorship. John Fryer, and here I'll give you a bit of... Yeah! Or no, I don't know if we disagree with that or what. Yeah. It's confusing, I know. Yeah. But, so here's a bit of a kind of a timeline of things that have been going on. John Fryer, a member of the Order of Canada, a professor at the University of Victoria, who's got a CV longer than a speech, penned an open letter describing a campaign school at the conservative-aligned and intricately linked Preston Manning School Center for Democracy. In 2010 at this campaign, quote, he says, instructors made it clear that robocalling and voter suppression were an acceptable and normal part of winning political campaigns. No. He goes on to say that tactics such as posing as a member of another party and making rude calls at inconvenient times were strategies to either suppress or change votes in their favor. These were the instructors at this campaign school. Now fast forward to the 41st federal election. Not only is voter apathy at a record high in Canadian democracy, not only has income inequality pushed the marginalized population even further away from the right to vote, but across 77 ridings, there have been over 31,000 complaints of just the kind of fraudulent activity endorsed at this campaign school, largely targeting Liberal and NDP voters. Now, let's put this in perspective. How many of you, when you get a bad cup of coffee at Tim's, actually take it back and complain? Now, exactly. As a stereotype, as Canadians, unless it's the weather or your hockey team doesn't make the playoffs, a Canadian complaint is like a dog year. 31,000 complaints is not just 31,000 complaints. This is a systemic issue that needs to be fully investigated.
Yeah.
Now, furthermore, what Elections Canada is reporting now, and I'm very much encouraged to see the pan-generational crowd here today, is they're reporting that the complaints have greatly targeted seniors. Seniors who are both, one, more likely to vote, and two, more likely to fall for this kind of fraudulent garbage. Seniors that have likely fought and lost defending the vote that got stolen from them, which is an interesting piece of why we're here at Confederation Park. Now, for any society to truly succeed, we need this kind of movement where we have young people and our elders all together with the strengths of all of us. So why do we stand here? Why do we stand here together? Is it because our government is supposed to represent a relationship between all Canadians? Is it because we build that relationship together during elections, vote by vote by vote? Excuse me while I turn the page. Is it because public confidence in our elections creates a sort of national trust that our government can then do the things that we can't do ourselves? To make Canada greater than the sum of its parts, while providing respectable leadership on the Indigenous, national, and global stages. They say it's because trust is earned. Now, I want to get your opinion on this. The Conservatives argue that fraud didn't affect the outcome of the last election. They go on to say that if the opposition wants them to release their records, then the opposition needs to release their records first, but the Conservatives still don't necessarily need to release their records because there's no proof that they did anything wrong. That doesn't even make sense. I didn't know. I did say that right.
Long enough.
I'm on a soapbox. Whether or not they committed voter suppression, whether or not they committed these fraudulent activities, they're holding on to their records for at least 7 days with a history of tampering with documents. And they're representing that in the lack of a serious and transparent investigation of these allegations, they're not proving they're untrustworthy, they're not earning our trust. Elections, democracy, trust, These aren't right things or left things. It's not for their election platforms, their attack ads, or their press conferences. These are for us. And it's not just every 4 years. Democracy is every day, and it's today. I think we stand here because we've been lulled to sleep. It's true, as they say, that sometimes Canadian politics is kind of like a mouthful of crackers. And I'm a politics geek. It's very dry. But the dream's over, and we're waking up to a Canada that does not value our trust in it. Looking around at the faces gathered here today, though, I think we're realizing we're waking up and that we're together in this. We're not alone. I think we stand here because a guy, Taylor, made a Facebook event. When I saw the... Thank you, Taylor. Where's Taylor? This is...
The examiner.
Oh, hey, examiner. Okay, everybody knows that the examiner's here as well. Thank you.
Checks is around the corner.
Checks is around the corner, so thank you for being transparent. Anyways, I think we stand here because Taylor made a Facebook event, like I said. Now, the anecdote and kind of the inspiration for myself was that when I saw this event, there was just this post saying, I've never organized anything like this before. I don't know anyone who has, but I just think it needs to happen in Peterborough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with this line at the end that just said, does anyone want to help? Now look what one person waking up, asking for help, can pull together in less than a week. Imagine what the 40, 50 of us here today could do in a month. Because we've all watched our MP, Dean Del Mastro, the robo-maestro, bring the Conservatives to Peterborough instead of Peterborough to Parliament. He's our elected representative. All of our elected representatives. We've watched him become the head harper robo-MP, mindlessly towing the party line, repeating the same talking points, and holding out, hoping that the most unprecedented allegation of election fraud in Canadian history is just going to blow over. Now let's take it back to another election. In 2008, the BC riding of Sandwich Gulf complained of robocalls, impersonating party campaign offices. While complaints were lodged with Elections Canada, they couldn't identify the culprits and the case was dropped. Will Horder of the Dogwood Initiative cautioned, if someone with subpoena power doesn't step up with some investigative muscle, I predict more such operations in future elections. As Canadians, we have the privilege of defending our democracy at the same time that around the world people are fighting for theirs. With very few shining examples out there, as global citizens, we need to step up and stand up for something worth fighting for.
Yeah.